Hey everybody, welcome to Read and React Watches Hard Knocks. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. This is your host, Ryan Parrish. I'm here with my colleague, Ryland Bickley, who I must ask, Ryland, are you thriving or are you surviving?
You know what? I think I'm surviving right now, but give me a week or two. We'll be back to thriving. It's almost
Yeah,
winter
we
break.
gotta we gotta get thriving. We got, December division playoffs coming up. If you're the Cleveland Browns, you're already in the playoffs. So
Exactly.
that was an interesting take for sure. We'll have lots of takes on the episode. All right, but before we get too deep into the episode, we're going to kick it off with a segment we call Read and Recap, where Ryland, in 30 seconds or less, is going to try to give us the general gist of the overarching episode before we kind of get into more details later. Ryland, are you ready?
You got it.
All right, here we go. I'll count you in. Three, two, one, go.
All right, we started off the episode with a season recap of where all four teams are right now in the season, where their rankings are in the AFC North. After that, we got a quick intro. We got a kind of vibe check, I guess, on where how each team is game planning here for the next part of their season. We got a quick look at the Hayward family Thanksgiving, and then we got some game footage of the games this weekend.
All right, with 5 seconds to spare.
Heck yeah.
All right, that was Read and Recap. That gives you a general gist of what happened.
With
Let's
zero
dive in
prep,
though.
I might add.
With no prep. Yes, it'll maybe be better next week. No promises.
Maybe, yeah, already.
So let's get into details a little bit. Ryland, you're kind of new to the whole Hard Knocks thing. You've seen an episode here or there, but what was your kind of initial takeaways from this first episode?
I thought that it was pretty good TV. I'll be honest with you. Not too much on just like NFL films, game footage. There's just a lot of meat with coaches' meetings and players' meetings and things like that. So honestly, I thought it was a pretty good supplement to the season, I guess we could call it. And I mean, not the greatest 50 minutes of TV I've ever watched, but probably worth the Black Friday HBO subscription.
Yeah, for sure. I was thoroughly entertained. As far as Hard Knocks go, I feel like honestly this was like HBO near the top of its game, and maybe that's because I've got skin in the game this time with the Steelers. But I just thought it was very well produced. They did a really good job of like getting sound bites throughout the week that set them up for, as a show, entertaining success. We had, Tomlin talking about specific players and then those players making plays in the game. So I just thought it was a very good episode. I feel like I still want some more personality when they do the segments that are not football. Because HBO, with Hard Knocks, there's always going to be, little vignettes where they take a player or a coach or somebody and they put them somewhere where they're not focused on football for a couple of minutes. And I thought they were good in this episode, but I am hoping for more as we move forward.
Yeah, I really wish that Joe Burrow's Batmobile would arrive during the Hard Knocks run.
Man, yeah, no. I mean, what do you think the shipping costs on that alone? Like, not even just the price of the car, because he
Oh
gets
my
it a year
gosh.
after he ordered it, right? So, like, what do you think it costs to even just get the car to him?
Well, didn't it cost like 3 million or somewhere
Oh,
in
I
that
never even
ballpark?
saw the price,
So
but
I
I
I just
mean,
feel very poor right now.
yeah, no kidding. I didn't even see I've never seen the price for that, but I assume it's Bruce Wayne money for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's not even street legal. It's just sad.
Yeah, that's the other thing is it's not even street legal, so like he just parks it at the crib and just, it's just in his garage. Like, when's he get to break that out? I don't know. Can he show up to mini camp in that?
Hopefully, yeah. I don't know. Star quarterback things.
No kidding. But I also think it kind of highlights where the Bengals are at and where their attention is, and where the two competing teams might vary a little bit. I think that's the one thing I would say is kind of the downer about this is coming into the season. We thought there was a legitimate chance at three, maybe even four of these teams making the playoffs, and we get to December and it's really just two horses still at it. But
Yeah.
you know, I'm not complaining too much because that means the Steelers are taking care of business.
Well, and something that stood out to me was how much all four teams kind of hold the AFC North on this pedestal of how important these games are. So even if the Browns and Bengals are kind of out of the race by the end of this run, actually they kind of are now, but they're still going to be playing these games with a lot of intensity, I think, and that should be good for the quality of the show.
Technically, neither of these teams are eliminated yet, but it would take perfection the rest of the way, and then a lot of lucky breaks based on what other teams are doing. But I think as a result, we actually got to see a lot of the Steelers because I think maybe if you had asked HBO producers which team they thought they would get the most of, this summer when they announced it, the Steelers were the team that felt like, them and the Browns were probably in line to see their time get crunched because of the quarterback situations. But obviously, as we've seen, that didn't go as anybody really predicted. The Steelers are thriving right now with Russell Wilson, and I am actually a little surprised how little of Russell Wilson we got in this episode. We had him on the field, we had him when he was talking to other players, but we didn't really get any like Russ sitting down in a chair talking to the HBO producers, Russ going out and doing anything. So I'd say that was probably my biggest surprise of the episode was that Russell Wilson really wasn't present outside of game clips.
Yeah, well, it feels like at least Tomlin and maybe Russ too aren't the most happy to sit down and do a sit down interview because all the other coaches kind of had some sit down moments, and we got maybe one soundbite from Tomlin from those. So they might just be locked in, you know?
Well, I mean, Tomlin isn't a huge fan of the cameras there. They're the only team in the division that hadn't had Hard Knocks previously. Obviously, the Ravens, John Harbaugh wasn't the coach when they were there, but and obviously none of the Browns staff that was there for Hard Knocks is still around.
Yeah.
They kind of cleaned house, but he's been very sort of I want to keep things in house for a long time, and I think we all know that about him. But I think he also could a little bit was like, here, you can sit on these coaches' meetings, but we're not going to go into like the X's and O's per se. He gave some cool insights on like players that they needed to focus on. And like, he's like, we got to make sure we protect the middle of the field against Chase because they'll hit that, in breaking route every time. But beyond, we didn't get like anything really complex beyond that. But I think he liked to let that do the speaking more so than sitting down and like writing, soliloquies about what it is to be a head coach in the NFL.
Sure, yeah. And I mean, and it's just fun to sit in on players and coaches watching film, even if it's obviously only surface level what they're showing. But I just kind of had this stupid grin on my face. So it's all
Oh,
good.
no, by the end of the episode, I think that would be my biggest takeaway before we kind of transition to talking about who the stars of the episode are. Uh, was by the end of it, I mean, I think our editor tweeted something out. Kate tweeted out something along the lines of like, "I'm
Shout
ready
out
to
to
run
Kate.
through a wall,"
Heck
and
yeah.
100% agree. It was obviously it was a win. We got a win this week, so that the vibes are going to be great for that. But I think that was the main thing I took away. And again, maybe I'm just Steelers tinted glasses here, but watching how the Steelers interacted with each other and watching how the other players, even when they were like, joking around with each other, it just felt like the Steelers truly practiced that family approach of like we're a family, and like the Ravens were maybe they were more, I don't know, I wouldn't describe it as the same. Like they all respect
Yeah.
each other and they're a good team, but I didn't get that same feeling of closeness as you saw with all the Steelers players.
Yeah, well, and I think that that takes us into our next segment, which is the star of the show, which I'm guessing we haven't previously talked about this, but it's got to be Tomlin, right?
It's
The
yeah, it's
the
Tomlin. I mean,
intensity in the Steelers building is just different than the other three, I think. Not that the other three are bad per se, but Tomlin has those guys locked in. You can tell he cares. There's just a different energy in the Steelers building. And even if Tomlin isn't super excited about having hard knocks in the Steelers building, like he is by far the best character so far.
oh, for sure. And he's got some of the best quotes, which we might touch on. Also, side note with Tomlin, this is totally random and just kind of the details I pay attention to. But in that coaches meeting, uh, do you think he purposely picked the chili flavored Frito Lays, or do you think that was just what was lying around?
It's got to be what was lying around. I don't think I've
Because
ever on purpose grabbed chili flavored
there's
Fritos before.
there's a deli across from where my main work is, and I go there and like you buy sandwiches, and he has like a bag, he has like a basket of chips that you can like just pick, and they're all different varieties in little those individual size bags. You only end up with the chili Frito Lays when everything else is gone.
Yeah, I've never seen someone grab those intentionally in my life.
Yeah, if someone wants to defend chili Frito Lays, hit us up on socials or on behind the steel curtain. But that was a shocking moment. Another shocking moment, and who I might say is another star of the game, star of the show, Cam Hayward. He didn't shock. More so, it was I think it was Brendan Fayeco, or I'm probably butchering his name. But there was a debate, and we got to settle this. Are you more of a pumpkin pie person or a sweet potato pie person?
I have a confession to make. I've never had a sweet potato pie in my life.
Oh my
I
goodness.
do love my mom's pumpkin pie. I guess I'll be a pumpkin pie fan,
Okay,
but yeah, I mean,
you're young. You'll
it's
get
a
out there.
very good pumpkin
You'll see.
pie.
There's a world of pies out there. Good, but no. I mean, to me, it's kind of like a cat and dog situation. I like both, but if you had to make me pick between the two, I would probably lean sweet potato. But can't go wrong with either.
Gotcha.
But Hayward, I would say beyond the pie moment, we obviously had Thanksgiving with him. We had his moments with Tomlin, talking about, the adjustments they had to make going in at halftime. I just love their chemistry. Tomlin hit him and Russ with a "Hey old man," which I just think is emblematic of kind of like the fun loving and just like good natured ribbing that must go on in that locker room. Um, but yeah, I'd say he's up there. But honestly, beyond that, none of the really other players. They talked to Joe Burrow a lot, so I guess you could maybe throw as if we're talking about non-Steelers, maybe Joe Burrow. We didn't actually get that much Lamar either. So, and maybe it's because they lost this week, but
I mean, I feel that the focus of each episode is going to be on if there is an AFC North game happening that week. So this week they happen to be Steelers versus Bengals.
we got the Browns second game, which will be obviously coming up this weekend.
Yeah,
Another Bengals game for the Steelers, but like for the Bengals, they did most of theirs already. They might have the Browns left, but it's really just them against the Steelers. So the Steelers are going to be involved in almost, and there might be
absolutely.
one Browns Ravens left. I forget if I think they've only played once. I might be wrong on that. But for the most part, the Steelers are going to be in all of those division games because the NFL saved them for the end and they already ran some of these other ones through. So I think the Steelers are going to be a heavy focus because of their standing and because of uh, just the games that are available. But, for as much as I feel like Lamar's been the MVP, and like obviously the Ravens did get, I think, the second most amount of screen time, perhaps. It was close between them and the Bengals. But uh yeah, just not a lot. And I mean he's kind of a soft-spoken dude, so that could be part of it too. But not a lot of insight. So I would just say that for me, it's probably Tomlin easy, and then maybe Cam Hayward.
Yeah, if there's a dark horse for it, it's got to be Roy Istvon, if I'm pronouncing that right, the
Mm.
Browns' assistant O-line coach. And it was stereotypical football coach, just yelling, repeating things over and over again. Some good quotes from that, though. We didn't go to Denver to go skiing. I mean, I don't know. He had like a solid 2 minutes of fame there that had me laughing.
I don't know, man. I hear what you're saying, but kind of like what we were talking about earlier when they weren't really buying in. Like I was like, well, no wonder. Like here's the difference. Like you look at what Tomlin and his organization's doing, and then you look at like the Browns, where it's like these are, can we say grown ass men? These are grown ass men that are professionals, and you're hitting them with the like just most generic, and you throw in a couple F bombs to spice it up. But like, like I'm not surprised that their record is what their record is if that is like all that the leadership of that team is like able to provide. Yeah, and I mean we might as well talk about Tomlin a little more since we're saying he's the star of the show. For me, the thing that I took away from it that I thought was really cool, and I mean, I know there's probably some people who disagree, but there's a mindset of positive. Well, it's not really truly positive reinforcement, but you get what I'm saying. Like where you build people up and you gas your own guys up rather than like, we got the Browns being like, everybody needs to do their thing and blah, blah. And then you got Tomlin who's, prepping up, okay, we need to be aware. This is a key matchup against Orlando Brown. They bought they went shopping. He told them like they went shopping because our guy smoked him last year.
Yeah.
So they went and had to get an upgrade. And Herbig, now's your chance. You need to smoke this guy and make him go shopping again. And like that, I thought was just like emblematic of just like why I think players love Tomlin so much is that he both respects them and gasses them up, but he's also highlighting like, but you do need to take care of business here. And it's like the great marriage of like focus and sort of just like building your own guys up.
No, exactly. That Herbig Orlando Brown through line was just so great. And then, Herbig finally gets that strip sack, and Tomlin is, I wasn't surprised. This is what it was just
Mm,
so great. And I mean, I feel like in that moment, Tomlin had half of Pittsburgh watching, wanting to go up against Orlando Brown. It
yeah.
was just beautiful.
Yeah, and for a lot of the Tomlin haters too, I feel like they're a loud minority, but I feel like they're present. And there was one quote where he was talking all in during the warm ups of the week where they were like kind of prepping. He was saying, they got a new running back, Cincinnati. We've never seen this guy as the starter here, but he's for real, and you have to take his speed serious. And he's talking about Chase Brown and what he brings to the table. And then after he had a really good first half against us, he's walking in with Hayward and I feel like this was almost like perfect for all the people that always question Tomlin in his preparation. He says to him, "You think I made that
Yeah.
up?" Like, no, he knows what he's talking about, and but he trusts that it's the guys that have to go out and do it. And I think Hayward, they did a great job highlighting the adjustments in the second half and the game Hayward was having, which again, he's on one. I wrote an article about it earlier this year. He's having a vintage Cam Hayward
Absolutely.
season.
And I
Um,
mean, I feel that I saw some beat writer tweet out while the show was playing that this is the side of Tomlin that people in the Steelers building see each week, not just the kind of dry playing it coy press conferences that the rest of us see. And so I think that this is going to do a lot kind of for Tomlin's image. Not that it was bad, but for
mhm,
people who think he might not care that much or he's just kind of a passive players coach that
mhm.
there's a lot more going on in that Steelers building. There's a whole other side of Tomlin that's just a very excellent coach. And that's why half the NFL wants to play for him every year.
For sure. And I think yeah. So I think we agree. Runaway. He is the star of the episode. All
That's
right, so let's
mine.
move on to our next segment. Best quote from the show. I definitely have some nominees. You do as well, I think. So maybe we can just rotate off what we got. But why don't you start us off? What's one you got?
Yeah, I really liked that quote from Tomlin that I think kind of opened up the episode where he was like, "We got to get back to business, and our business is winning." Just A plus, perfect Tomlinism, no notes, great thing to segue into the title sequence. Uh, really like that one.
Yeah, the Tomlin could run away with this on his own. I got a few more, so we'll just keep rotating, and I can just kind of read off the rest of mine if I get more. But why don't we start with? I'll start with one that isn't Tomlin. I'll start with one that was the host of the show, and I forget. I want to say his name is Lieb Schreiber. I might be getting that wrong, but the guy who does the narration of the voice had an absolute bar somewhere in the episode. I forget exactly where he dropped it, but there's a quote where he says, "Blood feuds don't care about records." When he was talking about AFC North football, I think he was talking about why the Browns, beat the Steelers last week, which they very briefly touched on. But I just thought that was such an epic line. Another one I had was my favorite interaction, I think, of the game was with Danny Smith and Mike Tomlin, where they were talking about how, since he doesn't really fake punt a lot, but Danny Smith says, uh, anybody gets desperate, they'll do crazy shit. Tomlin's response is just, yeah, no doubt.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that one.
That
Yeah.
was one of my favorite interactions of the whole show, just because like we've all been there where you got a friend who's like, man, I don't know, it's crazy out here, and then all you can really say is like, yeah, man, wild.
Honestly, I think that what this show needs is more Danny Smith, Mike Tomlin interactions. Those two, it's like a buddy cop movie. I'm sure be
If
incredible.
they get through this season and they do not show us what Danny Smith's like gum setup is and how much he has and like where he gets it and like how they have it set up in the facility for him, fire everybody on the staff because that
Oh,
is that
honestly,
you got to get that.
it's must-watch TV. That's why we're all
The
tuning in
world
each
needs
week.
answers. We need to know, how does Danny Smith get that much gum on a weekly basis. How much does he go through in a week?
It's absurd. Yeah.
But
Let's see.
what else
Another
you got?
quote. I got Carl Dunbar. Though we can't be four independent contractors on the D line. I thought that was really great with just how much star power they have in that room, just keeping the focus on teamwork and with all the pressures they run and keeping Burrow from climbing in the pocket and stuff like that. Uh,
Yeah,
very very solid quote.
great to see Dunbar get a moment. I think, low key, he's flown under the radar on this staff. He's been there
Super underrated.
forever. The defensive line has been great forever. It's one of those things where, you hear other teams talk about like what they try to get their D line to do, and then you hear the Steelers talk about like, how we got to like layer our rushing lanes and do all that. And it's I don't know. I mean, I'm just fanboying on the Steelers right now, but I loved it. I thought it was great. Another quote I had from Mike Tomlin. This was one of my favorite ones too. He when talking about the intimate relationships of getting these division rivals to know you. He was talking about Chase Brown again, and he says he might not know your name today, but he better by Monday morning when he was talking about his defenders needing to meet him in the gap, don't give him a free, head start where he can get up to speed. And it's just little phrases like that, where you're just like, people wonder how Mike Tomlin keeps it fresh. He's saying a very obvious thing. Hey, play your gaps. But he says it in a way that I just feel like makes the players want to go out and prove something, which I think is cool to see. Did you have any other quotes you wanted to throw out there?
Not really. I guess one thing I'll highlight that's not really a quote, but I found Minka Fitzpatrick to be a very interesting character in the first episode. I don't think he said a single word on
Not one that
camera,
I think.
but he's just there, and then he starts trash talking Jamar Chase, and I don't know. It feels almost like a metaphor for how his season has gone so far, where there's not been a lot of splash, but he's just there.
Yeah, well, it's they're asking him to kind of do the dirty work. They're putting a lot of the other guys in the positions where they can make the splash plays, but I think he's kind of been tasked with doing the unsexy work, and so that doesn't lead to the splash plays. But I think it's great. But yeah, he had one of the quotes I was going to possibly bring up when he was talking to. They're playing the game, and they show this clip of where Jamar Chase is running free down the sideline, but he doesn't get the target. And Minka Fitzpatrick was there waiting to blow him up as soon as the ball got there, and as soon as the play's over, Minka goes, "You were open on the whole shot." And Chase responded something along the lines of like, "You don't get a chance to hit me."
Yeah.
And I think that tells you right there, if even if some of the loud minority has been critical of the lack of splash plays, it shows you what the rest of the NFL thinks about. And when they showed the Bengals talking about who to get ready for on the Steelers defense, who did they throw up first? You know,
Fitzpatrick.
it was Fitzpatrick. And I think that goes a long way. And and it wasn't that typical HBO. They now have the footage from the game, and this was a player that made a huge play, like they kind of maybe like they did with Herbig. Fitzpatrick didn't make a huge splash play, and so to still show and highlight the respect the other team was paying him, I think kind of shows a lot about the like football's such a complex sport. It's got so many moving parts, and sometimes box score chasing isn't gonna tell you the full story.
Oh yeah, for sure. And to take that Fitzpatrick point, I want to segue to talking about something which I found kind of interesting, but the art of the NFL coach PowerPoint presentation. Because I actually kind of laughed when the Bengals put Fitzpatrick up on the screen because they had a slide and it was like a photo of Fitzpatrick, his name, and then like random Wikipedia facts like seventh year in the NFL, played football at Alabama, how much he weighs, like stuff
Mhm.
that doesn't really matter. So who's putting together these PowerPoint presentations?
Right?
Is it their media team? Is Tomlin at home, like dragging and dropping clip art? Like, I don't know. I just found that to be really funny for how business everybody is the entire episode.
Right. Well, again, I think it's because like they spend so much time working on the film that I think, they have all these like most of these staff have these lower level assistants who are like interns or like in on one of those levels where they don't get paid a ton and they're just kind of having to do a lot of the like dirty work. And I can guarantee you like Tomlin's not putting his slide together. Like maybe
Oh,
he runs
sure.
over
Yeah.
with who it is, but someone else put the slide together. So that's also why I think you kind of get those like Wikipedia-esque factoids thrown up there is because some poor intern or low-level assistant coach is like, what do I put up here? We can't have blank space. He weighs this much. So I don't know. I think that's funny. Again, I say that like most football coaches, I think, know more and will forget more about football than we do.
Oh, for
But I
sure.
also think we mythologize ball knowing a little more than is maybe what the actually being presented in the leadership in some of these different rooms. I didn't have really too many other quotes. Another quote that I really liked was just Russell Wilson geeking out after the Herbig strip sack. Hey coach, you said Herb, you said Herb, you said Herb, just saying that over and over again. And just like the joy that a 36-year-old quarterback who's been in this league so long on his new team felt just seeing a young guy make a play. I thought that was cool.
Yeah,
Keanu
and
Benton, I'll briefly touch on. He didn't really have anything that was like ooh impactful quote that like moved us, but I think again highlights that family aspect around the Steelers as they show a shot of him the night before the game, or maybe it was right before the game. I don't know. They're in the team hotel lobby somewhere, group meeting, and he's like, "Hey guys, I wasn't it this week. You know, mentally, physically, I was off, but then I was driving to the stadium." Thinking about the fact that I'm living out my dreams, and it's like, how can you not get hyped for that? We got to go beat these guys tomorrow, and just the fact that the whole room was like, "That's my guy," and like you can just tell the Steelers are really tight knit right now. Winning really has everybody just kind of vibing out in a good way. And I don't know. So what would we think is our quote of the week here?
oh man, it's got to be something from Tomlin. It has to be.
I think we'll go with our business is winning this week, maybe,
Yeah, I think that
and
that
then
one stood out to me the most. Yep.
and
And a
then
side note to end the quote thing, but Broderick Jones giving Russ crap for turning the huddle into a motivational speech was just so on brand. And I love how at this point in his career, it feels like Russ is sort of self aware about, I guess, the quirks of his leadership style. And so I thought that that was a pretty great moment as well.
I mean I live in Seattle, so I've seen a lot of Russ interviews over the years, and it's truly he's always kind of been like you either love him or you think he's corny. And I don't know. He's looser this year. I feel like when he went to Denver, he was drinking too much of the his own Kool-Aid a little bit on who Russ the quarterback, the legend was, and it
Mr. Unlimited.
didn't really go how he thought. The team kind of turned on him there in Denver. And so I don't know, we like seeing positive things in the world, and I feel like, Russ and the Steelers have gotten to a point where it's just funny seeing like the vets respect him, the kids that grew up watching him now playing with him, excited to be in the huddle with him. It's just refreshing to see.
Absolutely.
So I think that pretty much wraps it up. We could go a little hater circle if you like. Back in my growing up formative years, Dave Chappelle had a sketch called "The Player Haters Ball" that I internalized. There's always room for a little bit of suffering of your enemies that you can delight in, and I feel like an episode where we didn't get to see Cleveland lose, but we know that all three of our division rivals dropped it this week, and just seeing the Jamar Chase's face after the game, loved it. Lamar Jackson, we keep beating ourselves. Like, it's just I nobody dropped any really truly memorable quotes, but I love seeing the Bengals and the Ravens and the Browns stewing in their
I will
own.
say, I feel like Joe Burrow has a very interesting way of phrasing things. I don't remember the exact quotes. There were a few times during that where he would just be like standing there and be like, "This sucks."
Oh yeah, there was like there was one there was one I think he literally just got, well, that sucked, and then he
Yeah,
walked off. I think it
exactly.
was after the game. So
So
I
just
don't know.
like point blank. It's great.
It was like an almost aw shucks, you know, leave it to Beaver esque response, but I
Honestly,
don't know.
yeah,
But it was cool. So I like seeing the rest of the AFC North not prospering,
yeah.
and we can only hope that it continues. But I think that is going to do it for us this week. We are trying to keep it short, and we definitely hit some tangents this week, but we're going to get better. We're new at this. So thank you guys for listening along, and hopefully you enjoyed Hard Knocks. If you aren't watching Hard Knocks, then hopefully you enjoy us telling you what happened in it. And we'll see you guys next week.
Alrighty, thanks, guys.